and welcome to today's episode of Authentic Achievements, where it's my very great privilege to be joined today by Dr. Ravi Iyer. Dr. Ravi, welcome.
Good morning, Kim. It's 5:30. It's evening for you, right?
No, so we're still morning, but not as early morning as you. You're 5:30, aren't you?
Yeah. And where are you located?
So I'm located in Nottingham, and I've just finished the school run, so slightly further ahead of you in the morning. But thank you so much for being so kind to get up so early and come and join us. But before we get stuck into our conversation, let me share with the audience a little bit more about you. So Dr. Ravi Iyer, MD, is a TEDx speaker, author, coach, and president of Reston Town Centre Toastmasters Club. As CEO of IR Focal Point, Iyer Clinic, and Active Power Inc., he helps high achievers, including executives, entrepreneurs, and athletes, unlock their full potential through inner mastery. His programs, Art of Living Leadership and Cognitive Alignment Workshop, empower individuals to break limiting patterns, gain clarity, and live with purpose. Specializing in rapid mindset shifts, Dr. Iyer guides people from a consumer mindset to a creator's perspective. He shares insights on mental clarity, work-life balance, and personal transformation, inspiring others to embrace change. I mean, Dr. Ravi, there's so many places that I could go with that first question, but could you start by just bringing your journey so far to life for us, please?
So, that intro is quite extensive. The essence of the way everyone lives their life is how they perceive it. The conversations they have about their perceptions is basically their life. And most of us do not gain any control over the conversations that determine how life shows up for us. So life is we perceive what happens, and then we have this meaning-making machine that we are all born with that creates interpretations, meanings, and assessments. And most of us just passively accept the meanings that pop up and use it to define how life shows up for us. And there is very little power in that. That's the first thing. The second thing is there is also very little joy in that. If I were to tell you that you went to a restaurant and instead of eating the food on the plate, you chose to eat the menu that describes the food, that pretty much describes the way most people live their life.
Okay. Yeah.
The food on the plate is the actual experience. The menu of descriptions is all the stories and meanings that you have about it. Most people live within their meanings. They don't live in the experience. And so much so that by the time you're an adult, you've forgotten what it means to live in the experience. You have lost touch with it. You don't have. And you only get small snippets or small glimpses of it. And to do that, you usually have to take yourself away out of your everyday circumstance into something so radically new. Like you got to go up on a balloon somewhere, or you got to go and climb Mount Everest, or you got to jump off a cliff to actually jolt yourself out of the prison of your meanings and to actually shut that machine off and really wake up to experience. But the trap of that is the same trap that traps people into addiction. They realize, an addict is also seeking the freedom of experience. But what they do is they use a drug and then they think that the only way they can access that freedom is by shooting it themselves up.
Yeah.
The same happens to the pleasure seeker and the thrill seeker. They realize that, oh, I got this amazing experience when I went to Everest base camp. So the next trip, the next time I want it, I'm going to have to go to Kilimanjaro. And
Yeah,
so they keep going all over the place. And there is no difference between them and an addict. And there is an entire industry that profits out of not basically educating people that you can have it sitting in your backyard.
I love that. It's so true, isn't it? Because I think it's our emotional brain responds 24 times faster than our thinking brain, doesn't it? So something happens and we immediately make it mean something, which to your point is that label making machine, almost that piece that makes us feel like we're safe because we understand it, even though it's not keeping us safe at all, because it probably is incorrect and is holding us back. And a lot of those meanings that we've generated um, were generated when we were much younger and didn't have as much experience to be able to say, is that really true? Is that really what's happening? And so I guess for me, I look at mine and I've got a little girl who's 8, and you see them and they look at the whole world with curiosity and wonder, and they see the excitement in to your point, even the seemingly most mundane things like being in your back garden is like a wonderland to them, whereas for us we tend not to. So what is cognitive alignment and how does it transform leadership and decision making? I'm guessing particularly in terms of uncertainty, because that's when we really start to cling on to those, to those labels, isn't it? To those to those beliefs that we have become so accustomed to.
Kim, the meaning making machine that we have has a very, very defined purpose.
Mhm.
And it is important if you understand that you can use it for its purpose. But most people are trapped by it and therefore they don't really recognize or realize their purpose. But there is a way you can live. You can live where you volitionally use the meaning making machine to choose which meanings you want to define your current phase of life, but you don't lose your touch on experience. You don't lose your touch on the ability to observe life independent of the meanings that pop up automatically by your brain, by your emotional brain. So that requires skill. When you have spent the first 40 years of your life doing nothing except defining all the different ways you can make meaning and understand meaning and so on and so forth, you lose your ability, and then belatedly you realize that life is slipping by and then you want to capture it. What I The real power is when you can freely move between this meaning version of yourself and an observational version of yourself. And you can freely straddle these two aspects of your own persona and choose when you want to play, where you want to play. That puts you in an immensely powerful position. That's the first part. The second part is the desire to predict and gain some control over the essential unpredictability of life is universal, and it exists across all creatures. You know, even an amoeba will function in a way to garner for itself and predict which part of its little water droplet is likely to contain sugar as opposed to vinegar, and will go towards the sugar molecule versus the vinegar side of the water drop. So the tiger that cannot predict where a deer is going to appear is going to go hungry. The deer that cannot predict where the tiger is going to appear is going to get eaten. So, this fundamental need and drive to predict what is likely to happen in the next 5 minutes is basically the life supply of all the Wall Street bankers. They sit there trying to predict what's going to happen. Now, and they try to position themselves to get an advantage out of it.
Yeah.
And all these meanings that we create are essentially an attempt to predict the unpredictable. They're an attempt to get a handle on what life is likely to show up before life shows up. So you want to know what is going to happen. And you try to capture snapshots of the way life showed up in the past and try to superimpose it on the way it is showing up right now in the present and hope that this past picture is what the present is going to turn out to because it looks like it. And then sometimes you're right and sometimes you're wrong. But we keep doing that nevertheless. But the downside of that is you end up projecting your past into your present and then create the future as mirrors of your past.
Yeah.
So, so essentially, you really don't ever progress. You just live this groundhog day existence of keeping on waking up to the same kind of relationships, the same. You date the same man or the same woman. You have the same kind of bosses. You move to the same kind of jobs, and you wonder why you can't break the rut. And then you wonder why your business growth seems to just always cap out at a particular level and you can't go to the next level. And the reason you cap out is that the principles with which you create your meanings for your business are derived from your past.
Yeah.
And therefore, so what I do is the cognitive alignment basically allows you to align your observation, allows you to anchor yourself to observation and actually resist getting sucked up by whatever meaning pops up and allow you to explore which meaning you want to define. So then you become a user of the stories of your life rather than a consumer of the stories of your life. You become the creator of the stories.
I love that. I love that because we do consume our own stories, don't we? Rather than create them. I often say to people, we are the author of our own lives, and if we don't like the life we're living, we really do need to take back the pen, don't we? And say,
That's
right,
right. So what we have right now is a little AI machine churning out the stories. And we are just passively along for the ride. And what I'm saying is, hey, reach forward and take the steering wheel in your hand. To take the steering wheel requires you to actually tell that AI driver to step out and say, okay, you take a seat. I'm going to just take over. Don't tell me what to do. So, but most people don't even know what that looks like. Most people have no clue how to identify meaning as meaning because it masquerades itself as experience.
okay. So how do you start on that journey, Dr. Ravi?
You identify something that has no meaning as pure observation. You can use something. Some people use mathematics. They go into observational status. The Zen monks used Zen koans to do it. But you don't have to shave your head, even though I'm bald. You don't have to shave your head and go into a monastery. You you can do it you can do it drinking a cup of coffee. Um, the Japanese tea ceremony is an exercise in observation without the meaning. Um, Calligraphy is an exercise in the art of observing the fluidity of the strokes of the pen without whatever meaning uh, assigned to the characters that you are drawing. Painting is an exercise in observation without drafting meaning out of what gets constructed on the canvas. So all the art forms are usually observational exercises. Playing a Vivaldi, playing the piano, things like that. The the meditative exercises of yoga are observational exercises. So whether it is, whereas everything else, any other transactional activity that you have are all meaning making exercises. So you have a choice of what exercises you can fill your day with. Where you can choose to fill it with observational exercise. Listening is an observational exercise. But if you look at you, most people don't listen. They are listening to that little meaning making voice inside their head, making an interpretation of what they are hearing.
Yeah.
You are not really listening to what is coming. You're only listening partly to that. You're also listening to what you are saying about what you are listening. And the ability to shut that little voice off or at least ignore it, because you really can't shut it off, it's always going on, but you ignore it. And to ignore it, you have to be able to control where you direct your attention.
I love
Most people, 99.99% of people, have very, 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 very weak powers of attention. They have very weak capacity to focus.
it's so true, isn't it? Because I think, one of the things that I've observed is, societally, we know that when you stop speaking, I have to start speaking, and therefore at some point we stop focusing on what you're saying and start focusing on what we're going to say in response to it, because heaven forbid we have the dreaded silence that when you've stopped we say
That's
nothing.
right.
That
That's
might look
right.
like we weren't
That's right.
listening, and yet therefore we're not truly listening. We're not.
Yeah, you're only listening to respond.
That's right. One of the things I try really hard to do is listen to understand instead of listen to interject.
There's a pitfall in that. Listening to understand eventually uses the meaning to use to understand.
Yeah, okay.
Listening to listen
Yeah.
without necessarily trying to comprehend. Listening just as a pure space. So in my in my cognitive alignment exercise, I ask people, can you listen like you are a box? Can you listen as space? So I have an exercise where somebody will start with a story of an event, and the other partner in that exercise listens as pure space. And typically, you'll be amazed that people will actually they become emotional. They break down and start crying when they start listening as space. Because when they start listening a space for the first time, I've seen grown people, 50-year-old CEOs break down and cry when they actually did that listening exercise, where they actually listened a space and they found themselves suddenly breaking open into a portion of themselves which which gave them an inkling of the freedom that they contained within themselves, that they carried within themselves and never knew existed. It was as if I just unlocked a treasure box for them.
Amazing. Because listening is an act of love, isn't it? If we genuinely listen to somebody, we are giving them space, and when people give you that space, that fills us up, doesn't it? It makes us feel listened to.
So one of the problems, and right now when I'm talking to you, I'm seeing opportunities for cognitive alignment right here in this conversation. When you use the word listening is an act of love, which is a very valid statement, not invalidating that. But the minute you use that description, listening is an act of love, a set of pre-canned meanings pop up. And the person is pulled out of the act of listening into the act of defining the act of listening. Listening is indeed an act of love, but an act of love as an experience as opposed to an act of love as a definition or a description of an act of love. I tell people How often do you define act of love as a kiss as opposed to act of love as an experience of a kiss? I tell people, every one of you in this room have kissed only once in your life, your first one. After that, you have only spent your time describing that. Every other kiss, you have only described your first kiss. And people think about that and they are horrified. I said, oh my God, I've had a loveless existence. The experience of love is an experience of expansion that later you look back and say, that was an act of love. Most people, when you actually conduct them into a space of experience, and listening is just one form of a space of experience. You can walk into a room and you look at a person and you can be in a space of experiencing them. The African tribes people say, I see you. And what they're describing is an act of experiencing the vision of that other person. You walk into a room, and even if you don't even say it, if you are being an act of experiencing the other person as the vision of that other person will automatically fall in love with you. Because everyone in the world wants only three things in life: they want to be seen, they want to be heard, and they want to be validated. And there is nothing more validating than being experienced by somebody else instead of being described by that person.
Yeah, I love that because we're often so quick to give meaning, give labels, give
And there's nothing wrong with it. Or I'll give you, when I was 22, I learned this at 22, but it took me about 44 years to perfect it afterwards, to refine, and you continually grow into it. But the fundamental lesson was taught to me when I was 22 by a monk. He said one day, he asked me, did you have a good bowel moment today? I said, yeah, I did. He says, are you concerned about the bowel movement that you emitted after you have emitted it? Are you really worried about it? Are you spending your time thinking about it? And I said, no. And I was wondering where the conversation was going, you know. And then he said, your digestive system consumes or ingests, it takes in the food material that you give it. It converts it into various products, blood, bone, and other tissue and other things, for the purpose of maintaining this body that you are given, so that you can do the work of the body. And and one of the products that your digestive system creates, in addition to blood, bone, and tissue, is excreta. It's an automatic process. There's nothing you can do to change it. Its only purpose is the survival of the body. Like that, your brain takes in the input from your five senses and creates hopes and dreams and anticipatory actions and plans and likes and dislikes and judgments and assessments. It is just like your gut creating excreta and useful products. They are only for the purpose of doing the business of going about transmitting yourself. But if you understand that, you can let it happen just like the way you let your gut happen. The problem is you are jumping into the pile of shit that your body is making, calling it your plans and your meanings. It's just a load of shit.
I, that's
And,
fascinating.
and he said, you're stinking up your life.
Because we're so busy trying to make everything mean something instead of just,
Let it happen and
yeah,
go on. And then once in a while, you'll find one meaning that is valuable to use for the time being.
yeah, yeah.
To create the story of today or this moment or the next 10 years, like, so I can choose, but in such a situation, my story is my choice, not something that chooses me.
I like that. It reminds me of, I love quotes, and it reminds me of the quote that is, I'm not a victim of my circumstance. I'm a product of my choices,
That's
because
right.
we're choosing all the time, and you're saying by choosing to experience what's going on rather than almost dissect what's going on, then we stand a better chance of
Yeah,
really connecting with who we are and creating the life we really want instead of the one that we have sabotaged, really, with.
not really sabotage. I'll tell you why. It's like getting on a machine, like getting on in a car, and then confusing the operations of the vehicle as the real substance of the journey of going from A to B. And instead of actually letting the vehicle carry you from place to place and choosing to look out of the window and enjoy the ride, and and when you reach the destination, choosing to actually get out of the vehicle and walk out, you people continue to sit in the vehicle and say, yeah, this is it, this is it. And then they complain why they're trapped in a vehicle. That's all that's all there is. And freedom exists not in saying that I will never use a car. Absolutely, that's stupidity. And it also, it consists of not saying that I'll only sit inside a car and never get out. So the true master uses meanings to get to places, to craft the constructs of their life, to rule it, but remain always the ruler. So what I do in cognitive alignment, so here's the thing. A lot of people will go to workshops, and my workshop is, like everything else, produces the similar effects, except there's one difference. Most people will go to a workshop and have a cathartic experience that dies out when they leave the workshop. So they'll carry it with them for a little while and then they fall apart. And then the the real problem is not that they actually went to the workshop and got meaning, they are not able to actually sustain it. And the only difference in cognitive workshop is that at every point the participants are taught how to create it for themselves. They are not given the answers. They create it. And then when they create it, they're able to create it wherever they go. There's a certain amount of practice required, but it is not onerous. It's actually easy and quick. And there are methods for it. There are techniques for doing it. Techniques that do not require you to isolate yourself from society. Do not require you to lock yourself up in a windowless room and go into some kind of a trance. Because you can't do that. So what there is no value. All these methods are available in a monastery, but you can't do that. You know, big, people people want to be able to live life and get the fruits of their life without having to retreat from life.
Yeah. Well,
They want to be masters of life. not not recluses from life. They want to be. They want to play. A child wants to play, not have peace of the grave.
Yeah, it's true, isn't it? We want to be able to create within the life that
Yeah,
we want
I
to.
love my life. I enjoy my life. I I spend time. I I create and I have a blast.
And that's the best way to live, isn't it? Is to is to enjoy it, is to find the things that makes your soul sing and spend more time doing them, because I think that's what helps us to deliver the experience that we're really wanting to search for.
Yeah.
Dr. Ravi, I could literally chat to you all day. Can't believe we've run out of time. I've still got so many more questions. But before we go, could I ask you, if you had to go back and give your younger self a piece of advice, what would it be?
I should have. The only thing I should have started doing what I'm right now doing about 10 years or maybe 15 years, 20 years ago, because I I I was just as good 20 years ago as I am now. It's just that I, I didn't really believe that the world was ready to hear what I had to put out. It took a while for me to get over that meaning that I had made for myself.
Yeah.
Uh, that that somehow I was not ready. That was a meaning that held me back. And once I realized, and that was the most subtle and insidious meaning. It is called the meaning that you make that you need to become perfect.
Okay.
You need to you need to become superlative before you can actually contribute. People think that they have to be some extraordinary version of themselves before they can make a difference in life. You need to be you're extraordinary right now, right as you are. There is no new version that needs to be created. You just need to unlock the version you are right now.
I love that. That so resonates because I've definitely been guilty of waiting for the moment when the perfect appears, and
That's right.
we
That's
are
right.
perfectly imperfect, aren't we? Our imperfection is our perfection. um,
That's right.
I have a good friend who always says, uh, progress beats perfection every day. So as long as you're doing something, that will beat perfection, because perfection is never going to happen. So don't wait. Like just keep going. So Dr. Ravi, thank you. You've already shared so much amazing insight and definite food for thought. But how can people get in touch with you, and who do you help?
So you can easily reach me on my website, www.driyyer.com. You can put that in you can get there, you can message me, you can request a book a time slot for you to just have a chat with me. There is absolutely no charge for consuming 30 minutes of my time just to find out what, even if you just wanted to just chat and ask a question, I will be happy to answer. That's not a problem. The who I serve is anyone who wants to have an expansion in their ability to live life. Most of the people who come to my courses are usually organizations or individuals seeking to do either a workshop, or sometimes I I have people who book me for a keynote or a speech that they want me to give a target audience, and I do that. But fundamentally, it's geared towards helping people and helping teams transcend whatever is blocking them from executing at the best possible level. And that's what I do. And usually it takes me only between 30 to 45 minutes of a session to make a significant perceptible breakthrough in their experience. The longer form workshops are usually in the area of consolidating that breakthrough so that it becomes a lived experience for the team.
I love that. Amazing. Obviously, we will make sure that all the ways that you can contact Dr. Ravi are in the notes below. So if you weren't able to scribble all of that down, please don't worry. Just look in those notes below and you'll find everything that you need to connect with Dr. Ravi. Dr. Ravi, thank you so very much for coming on and sharing your time and your experience with us, and sharing such great insight to get us thinking about how we can take back the pen and write the chapter of our life that we want to read. So thank you.
Thank you.
And to everybody listening and watching, I hope you found it as insightful and inspiring as I have. And until next time, take care.